Hello, this is Chris Duncan at Find Your Focus Photographic Education, and today we're working in Lightroom with my series, The Things You Need to Know When Working in Lightroom. These are a few of my favorite things and little tips and tricks to make your Lightroom workflow more efficient and more productive. And today we're going to be focusing on the Alt or Option key, depending on if you're on a Mac or PC. I'm a big fan of shortcuts and using the modifier keys. In fact, a good practice when you get any piece of software is to play with what Shift or Command or Control or Alt or the Option key will do with certain tools. You know, it stands for alternative or another option of that tool. So each program has those built in, and it uncovers a lot of neat little things. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to dig around to find those. But today we're going to be working with this specifically for Lightroom. I'm in my Quick Develop panel here, my Quick Develop module in the Library panel. Sorry, Quick Develop panel in the Library module. And you notice under Tone Control we have Exposure, Contrast, Highlight, Shadow, White, Black, Clarity, and Vibrance, just like we have in the Basic panel in the Develop module. But what we're missing is Saturation. So if you like to use saturation and you use the Quick Develop, hold down the Option or Alt key, and there you get saturation and clarity changes over to sharpening. So that's just one thing that will help you in this. Another thing you'll notice on the left-hand side of the screen is now I have import ... and export ... which means it's going to ask me another question what I want to import. If you want to import a catalog or export a catalog, you can hold the Option and it gives you that option right there to import a catalog or export a catalog. So that may be handy if you need to bring in a catalog from an external drive or something into your main library in your workstation, or export this to another drive for working somewhere else. You can use these options, and that's just a quick way to do that. Okay, I am going to move to the Develop module right now, and you notice I have my Basic panel open. It's what we're used to, the white balance and exposure and tone. So some of you may be aware that the to reset these, like contrast is +13. If I want to reset that, I can double tap in the middle here and it goes back to 0, which is a very handy, quick shortcut. But sometimes we're playing with these, we want to see what they're doing, and we went too far, we need to reset it. A quick way to do that is hold the Option key, and you'll notice where it says tone, it went reset. And so now I can click that, and it will reset all of my options to 0. Nice and easily to do that. So that's a quick shortcut. If you need to go back and correct something, you can do that and reset it by holding the Option key. Okay, I am going to go now down to, we'll go through the tone curve. HSL gives us the same thing, reset. You know, we have the on and off here where we can see before and after. But we might just want to reset our luminance or our hue and not all of them. So we can also hold down the Option key and we get that reset there. Okay, so that's very nice. Let's go to another one. This is a panel I really think it's helpful, is in the Detail panel. And this is in sharpening. You know, when we sharpen, well, the way the computer sharpens, if we try to sharpen what our eye think looks right, it can be difficult. You really want to just sharpen for the output of what you're printing on. So when you're in Lightroom and you're sharpening, it's really a pre-raw sharpener. It's different than sharpening for your output, so you want to be very careful when you do this. But if you happen to be working in this panel, and let me zoom in on her face here, and I hold down the Option key while messing with these sliders, you will notice the screen will start to change. And it almost looks like a high-pass filter. There it is. So I can see the exact edges that it's sharpening. If I bring this real extreme, just for an example, you can see all those edges it's sharpening, because what sharpening does is it really adds contrast to those edges of pixels. That's how it gets that sharpening in there. So I can see what areas it's really affecting by doing that. And the same when I hold on Detail, where are the details coming out? And so it's probably it's probably faint to see on that. And the same with the masking. If I release the Option key, I get the normal view. But when I hold down the Option key, I get this kind of high-pass look. I can see all the areas that it's masking in on that sharpening there. So that's a quick way to know what your tool is doing for you. So now let's go into the Effects panel where you might vignette. and I will hit the space bar to zoom back out again to see the full image. So I like to put a vignette on almost all of my images, but sometimes it's hard to know where the center is and how the feather looks like. And how many of you done this? Turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off. We've all done that. We're trying to see if we like it, if it works for us or not. So by holding the Option key, we do have the option to reset our post vignetting. Like in all these panels, the option is going to give us the reset factor. But what this allows us to do is on the midpoint and these other things, is it's going to go ahead and darken our vignette to the darkest. So we can see exactly where our midpoint is and all that stuff. So let's hold down Option and click on midpoint. And watch, see, ooh, look how it gets really dark. So that's where my vignette is. Now that's not what the final image looks like. It's just giving me a rendering of where my vignette is. So then I can adjust the midpoint and get a place for where I like that. It gives me a nice visual representation of where I want that midpoint to be. Now I'm going to keep my Option key held down, and I'm going to go to roundness, and let's see if I can make this a little more rectangular. So I'm going to take the roundness down to the left. There you go. That's nice. And then I'm going to hold the feather key with hold the Option key and hit feather, and I can really see how this is feathering. So I don't want a hard edge. I want a softer edge like that. So now I can get a really good idea of where my vignette really is. So let's say I have this image and I have this image right here, very similar, the same place, right? And I want to sync my settings. I want whatever I did to this first image to go to the second one. We all have done that. There's a couple ways to sync those settings. You can copy and paste, you can sync, and so on and so forth. I'd have to have two selected right there. I'm sorry. It's right there. So if I hit sync, notice it has dot, dot, dot. If I hit that, it's going to bring up this menu. And now all these things are checked or unchecked depending on what you want to sync. Well, I don't want to be asked this every time. Very rarely do I sync a crop or a spot removal or a local adjustments because it's just too specialized. So what I will do though is I will sync my white balance and my basic tones and any curves and sharpening and stuff that I have to it. And so to skip this step, if I hold the Option key, you notice it just says sync. So I'm going to hit sync and it's going to do it. It's not going to ask me. It's going to sync whatever I had checked. So now I can go to this image right here. Sorry. And so now I know what it's going to do. I'll just hold down the Option key and sync those settings across again and not be asked. It might sound like a small little thing, but what it does is it allows me to just skip that step and move my hand around. It just makes it a little faster for me, keeping everything down here nice and streamlined. Now if you want to work from one end to the other and you don't have to find the other image and you need to sync that or copy that, maybe that'd be the best thing to do. Over here on the left you have copy and paste, so if you hit copy it's going to ask you. It's kind of like sync, you're just pasting it instead of syncing it. Same type of thing. I can hold down the Option key and it's just going to copy those settings without asking me what they are, and then I can go back to another image and paste it, and I know it's going to apply those settings for me. So I think that's a nice little shortcut to that. Okay, let's get to this image, and I'm going to show you a couple more things that I really like about the Option key, and that is let's start in the Q, press Q for the patch tool thing. So let's say I want to get rid of some of these leaves here, okay? We all know that we can kind of draw around, or I can click some leaves, you know, and get rid of some of this stuff. Well, this is making a history of all these different spot adjustments I've done. So I'm getting rid of some little hot spots over here in the leaves, and it's setting up and it's deciding where it's going to patch from. Okay, and I kind of look at that and I scroll off the side, my tool pins move away so I can see. I'm like, you know, I don't really like the way these looked up here. I don't think it didn't help the image, it didn't hurt it. I don't want those. So I could reset this and that gets rid of everything. But another thing is I'm going to hold my Option key and I'm going to get scissors. And I can just hit on these points and delete them like that. Or I can hold the Option key and draw a square around them and delete them. So if I want to delete these two over here, I can just easily draw a square over those and delete those two and still keep this. Now since this was my first one, if I had to go back through a history thing to get rid of those, to get rid of this one and leave the other ones. I couldn't do that through history. So now if I'm going to do these, I'm like, oh, I really don't want to like my first one, but I don't want to use my history palette and then get rid of these and then come back and do these again. The option key is a great option to get rid of that one patch tool that I did not like. So that's a really nice feature. Let's go to the crop tool. Press R for the crop tool. Okay, I like to keep mine unlocked over here next to aspect and original. Locking is nice if you know the finished output. If it's going to be a square or a 4x5 or something of that ratio, that's really nice. I like to have more freedom with my cropping, so I like to have that unlocked so I can drag it around and kind of crop the way I want it to be. Okay. Well, with the we're getting away from option for a little bit. With Shift key, it's going to lock in that ratio, so I don't have to worry about locking it. Then I can keep it the ratio I want, and then unlocking it if I want to do something freeform. So that saves me a little bit of time, and over a course of a day or a week or a month, it's a lot of time it's saving me. Another thing is I may know I want to crop this right here on her, nice and tight. By holding the option key, I can now draw a square of any shape I want. And it's going to crop that shape for me. Now another thing, if you hold Shift and Option, it'll keep the same ratio and it'll size it from the center. So that's another quick thing. Works like that way in Photoshop as well when you're doing like transform or anything like that. So a lot of these same techniques go across the different programs. So, and of course if you're using your brush, you're using an adjustment brush, and we will just do a burn here. And I'm going to make it extreme just so you can see it. And I can burn in this area really dark, which is overburned. A quick way to do that is do Option, and it's the minus key, and then it'll start taking it away, and it'll erase those areas if you maybe went too heavy or too far. And that's, instead of coming back over here and clicking the erase button on the bottom or changing a lot of this stuff, you know, I can burn in and then maybe hit Option and erase away. So it's a nice quick way to switch between add the effect and take away the effect, all by using the Option key. So keep that in mind when you're working in Lightroom. Don't forget the Option or the Alt key. I think you'll find some neat tricks with it, some way it makes the tools work a little more effectively and efficiently for your workflow. Once again, this is Cris Duncan at Find Your Focus Photographic Education. Thank you so much for watching, and happy creating.